Overeating sucks. It makes you feel shameful, it makes you feel guilty, it's frustrating. But there is one habit that you can keep that can completely make not overeating so much easier. My name is Niam. I lost 50 kilos, but then I got into this cycle of aggressively binge eating for years. And I finally managed to break free and take control of my life. And I want to share with you the one cornerstone habit that makes everything else in my life so much easier, including not binge eating, including eating healthy food, and actually just feeling in control of my diet. I'm going to be breaking down that habit into the 4 elements that you need so that you're optimizing the habit and actually making sure that you're performing this habit properly to give you the benefits that I'm going to outline in a second. And so here's the problem. The problem is that online, and this pisses me off because everyone says that if you overeat, if you eat the dessert, if you eat the snack, you are ill-disciplined, you don't have willpower. And I think it's complete BS. Because I, throughout my life, was positively reinforced for the behavior of eating. It became a reward. I'd come home from school and I'd maybe do my homework and I'd be like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go get a takeaway because I deserved it, right? And it became part of my identity. I used to gloat to my friends about how much food I could eat. In fact, I was talking to one of my friends the other day and we used to tell each other how much pasta we could eat in one sitting as like this status symbol. And so when people say that you're ill-disciplined for snacking and eating, it's kind of BS because I think everyone comes from a different place. Everyone has these different relationships with food that they have to unwire. And so for someone to have maybe grown up in a disciplined household and then stay disciplined and then to say that you are ill-disciplined for eating and acting upon the cravings that they don't even have is just complete bullshit. And so when I realized that I have this compulsive eating disorder, and I call it a disorder because I was eating so much food, I was full. Like, I used to eat to the brim, and I realized that I needed to take care of my life so that I didn't act upon the urges. And there's an experiment that I want to share with you that epitomizes the point that I'm trying to make about this habit. And so there was an experiment done by this lady called Karine Spiegel. And she had 12 men in a room, and for 2 nights she gave them less sleep. So it was like 6 hours of sleep. And then for 2 nights she gave them a full 10 hours of sleep. And after the 2 nights of bad sleep, she measured a few different things. Now in your body there are 2 hormones. One is called ghrelin, the other is called leptin. And leptin controls how full you feel and ghrelin controls how hungry you feel. And she measured the amount of these 2 hormones after both conditions, so less sleep and more sleep. And she found that after having more sleep, they had 20% more leptin and 20% less ghrelin, around those numbers. Don't quote me on that, but around those numbers. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the amount of sleep that you get will have a downstream impact on the level of hormones in your body that control your hunger and fullness. And so if you're not prioritizing sleep, you are shooting yourself in the foot. Now I'm going to share in a second why most people don't actually realize that they're not sleeping enough. But I want to drive this point home because the group, when they had less sleep, the other thing that they measured was their appetite subjectively and also their desire to eat carbohydrates. And both of those went up with less sleep. And so if you're not taking care of your sleep, as I said before, you're shooting yourself in the foot. But here's where most people go wrong, because most people will be like, and this might be you too, will be like, oh yeah, like I get enough sleep, I'm sleeping 6 hours, I don't feel tired. But I read about this experiment the other day, and this experiment said that they basically took a group of people and they split them into 3. And group 1 was given 4 hours of sleep per night. Group 2 was given 6 hours of sleep per night. And group 3 was given 8 hours of sleep per night. And they did that for 14 nights. And then every 2 hours, they measured their cognitive function. And what they found after 14 nights of sleep, they found that the 6 hour and the 4 hour group had the same cognitive function as people that had been awake for a day or 2 days respectively. So if you'd been asleep for 6 hours every single night for 14 nights, you have the same cognitive function as someone that's been awake for 24 hours. And if you've been asleep for 4 hours every single night for 14 nights, you have the same cognitive function of someone that's been awake for 48 hours. Now that is crazy, but here's the scary part. After 3 or 4 nights, the 4 hour and the 6 hour group, they stopped reporting feeling more tired. They didn't subjectively know that they were more sleepy. And so what we can deduce from that is that lack of sleep will impact your hormones. But consistent lack of sleep, you will not notice it. And so it is likely that a lack of sleep consistently, without you realizing, is impacting your hormones. So I used to wake up at like 5 a.m. every single day, but I wasn't prioritizing my bedtime. I go to sleep at 9:30, sometimes go to sleep at 10, and I was probably getting 7 hours in bed, but 6 hours of proper sleep. And consistently doing that over time was probably fucking up with my hormones, fucking up with my appetite. And as a result of that, I was just having more cravings throughout the day. And so something that I've prioritized so religiously recently, which has made the difference, is having a consistent bedtime. And I'm going to talk about consistency in a second, but having a consistent bedtime so that I get enough sleep every single night. Most people need 7 to 9 hours. But here's the kicker. You might even prioritize getting 7 to 9 hours. You might be thinking to yourself, yeah, I do get 7 to 9 hours. I'm completely fine. But there are 3 other macronutrients to sleep. And I got this from a guy called Matthew Walker that impact the quality of your sleep and therefore impact how tired you feel and your hormones and the cravings that you have, and therefore the likeliness that you're going to overeat. And so these macronutrients, the first one is quality of sleep. So let me tell you a story. A few weeks ago, I was drinking a lot of coffee. Now, like you, I like coffee a lot. I have a coffee machine in my house, which I use pretty much every single day. But it got to the point where I was having 3 double shots per day. And I would go to sleep and I'd have this really fragmented sleep. I would wake up in the morning, I would have more coffee because I felt sleepy, and it would be this endless cycle. And I noticed myself having these negative thought loops and these things, but I didn't feel sleepy because I was having the coffee. And what I now know is that I was having more cravings even just a few weeks ago because I was not allowing myself have the quality of sleep. So I was getting the quantity, I was going to sleep at the right time, I was waking up at the right time, but because I wasn't, and I'll talk about how you can do this practically in a second, because I wasn't optimizing for the quality of sleep that I was having, I was still having the impacts as if I wasn't sleeping enough. And so there is this one method called the 12-3-2-1 method, and write this down because this will change your life. But there's something called the 12-3-2-1 method that you can do to massively improve the quality of your sleep. So what you need to do is 12 hours before you go to sleep, you have to not have coffee. 3 hours before you go to sleep, you don't eat. And 2 hours before you go to sleep, you don't drink water. And 1 hour before you sleep, you don't look at screens. You do those 4 things, the quality of your sleep will skyrocket. Okay, but you might be thinking to yourself, all right, I get my quantity, I got my quality, but what's next? There are 2 other macronutrients. I'm going to cover them both in this video. The third macronutrient is called regularity. Now, regularity is an interesting one because I think most people fuck up on this one, to be honest. I used to work a 9 to 5 and I would work during the week, and I'd wake up, go to the gym, do all that jazz, go do my 9 to 5, and then I'd go to sleep relatively decent time, 9 p.m. or maybe 10 p.m. And I'd be regular throughout the week. But then the weekend would come around, and at this point I was living in Tooting in London with my friends. And because I was in a group of boys that quite like seshing, we would just stay up late on the weekends. And sometimes it'll be 1 a.m., sometimes it'll be 2 a.m. But there's a big problem with this because your body is, again, working because of hormones. Hormones basically control how your cells operate. And when you wake up, you have a spike in cortisol. And over the day, it comes down over time. And conversely, or on the other side of that, you have melatonin, which is the signal that your cells respond to in order to go into a sleepful state. Now that peaks just before you go to sleep and then comes down. And so it's basically you have cortisol on one side and you have melatonin on the other side. Now, what you need to understand is that if you're going to sleep at like 2 a.m. on a Friday and a Saturday, but then on the weekday, you are going to sleep at 10 p.m. at a reasonable time, then your body doesn't know when to create cortisol. Your body doesn't know when to create melatonin. And guess what? That means that the quality of your sleep that you're gonna have on a weeknight is not gonna be as good, because on the weekday, you've basically confused your body, right? And so one of the most important things that you can do, and I've done this for the last 30 days, I've slept pretty much at 8:30 p.m. every single day and woken up at 5 a.m. Now, there'll be an off day where I wake up a little bit later, but I've been the most consistent I've ever felt before. And I guarantee you, just trust me on this, try it for 30 days. You will sleep so much better just because you've kept it consistent. And so the final macronutrient of sleep that you need to consider in order to stop yourself from overeating, or at least reduce the chance of you having these cravings, is timing. Now, timing is a really interesting one because most people don't realize this, but our bodies and our brains have not evolved to live in this modern world that we are in right now. We existed as hunter-gatherers for thousands and thousands and thousands of years prior to this modern world where we're working in front of screens and we're working 9-to-5s and we have 40-hour work weeks. And when we were hunter-gatherers living in these tribes, we would have been at risk of being attacked by predators like lions and also other rival tribes. And the greatest risk would have occurred when the tribe was sleeping at night, because let's say the whole tribe is asleep, then that would be the best time for someone to come and attack because no one is watching. And so as we evolved, the tribes that would have survived longer would have had families that had people that were able to sleep at different times. So how this manifests in human life is that some people are night owls and some people are early birds, right? And so what you need to understand is that you have a natural rhythm, a genetic rhythm to your sleep and wake patterns. And so through experimentation, and you can do quizzes online, if you just search a chronotype quiz, you can find out like what your chronotype is, and you can find out whether you're an early bird or a night owl. That means that you can align your sleep rhythm to your body clock. And so if you are a morning person, then you can wake up early, and that means you're gonna feel more rested because you're gonna have a better sleep. Whereas if you are a night owl, then you can start sleeping a little bit later, wake up a little bit later. You can design your life around your sleep, your natural sleep timing chronotype, so that you're maximizing the quality of sleep. And as we have realized from the experiment that I shared earlier, that having quality sleep will 100% make you have less cravings, will make you less hungry, will make you want to eat less carbs and less calories. And so will completely improve and transform your eating habits through that mechanism. Thank you very much for watching. If you found that useful, leave a comment below. And I created a video on how you can stop binge eating for good, so check that out here.